Hey guys, we've had a lot of requests here lately for some kind of DIY fun take-home floral arrangements for you to be able to do with your kids or even with yourself. So today we're going to start with just kind of a basic one. We've got these fun polka dot spring colored cubes that we're going to use, and then we've got some flowers that are going to match the colors on these. We've got our Oasis wet foam, and then you can also use some scissors just to kind of cut it with. I'm going to use my clippers today, but scissors at home will work just fine for the kids. That way, hopefully, nobody cuts themselves. With the wet foam, we're using the Oasis brand, and we'll send out a brick of this with your package, and it's going to come dry, so you'll want to soak it. The important thing to remember when you soak it is have the words up top, and so we're just going to drop it into a bowl of water, and it's going to soak it up, and as it soaks, it sinks, and it'll kind of float. While that floats, I do want to mention we're not going to guarantee that you're going to get these exact colors of the exact flowers. You're going to get the same flowers, but they might just be different colors, and they're going to coordinate with this container and just make it really fun and bright and cheerful and something to liven up your space. It doesn't really take that long for the foam to soak. As you can see, it's almost fully soaked. You don't want to dunk it or anything because that's going to create air pockets, and you want to make sure that you have it fully soaked because that's how your flowers are going to drink. And you also want to make sure that you keep water in your container so that way it has a steady source of water, and that's going to help with the longevity of your arrangement. You can kind of see how it's soaking through, and you can tell whenever it's fully soaked because it'll all turn to a darker shade of green. It's almost done. Okay, so now that that's soaked through, you can pull it out of the water and just drop it into the container. It goes a little bit lower into the container, and it actually has some open space in here, so you can pour some of that leftover water in there because you want to make sure that it's going to stay fully hydrated, and that's going to, again, just keep everything alive and make it last longer. I would say maybe pour it until you have your arrangement done, at least half of the way through, because as you start adding stems, the water is going to come out of the container, and you don't want it to overflow whenever it comes out of the foam. So as far as flowers, I'm kind of OCD about stuff. I know I've seen other online things and people that are doing just like 2 stems. I like multiples of 3. So you're going to get 3 stems of the leatherleaf, 3 stems of the Austromerium, 3 stems of roses, and 3 stems of daisies. And then on this one, we're also going to use the Monte Cassino asters. And that's just going to kind of give you the color scheme that's on this container. So with the leatherleaf, it's just a great basic greenery that we use, and it takes up a lot of space. This one individual is going to be too long for the container itself, but if you'll take and cut it into pieces, you can use it multiple ways. And so you'll take and I like to put one in the center to start with, and then you can kind of go around and fill along just to kind of help hide your container, not necessarily the container, but the foam that you're using. One thing to remember about with using the foam is you don't want to take once you put your stems in the foam, try to leave it in there. Otherwise you'll end up with holes and your arrangement will kind of fall apart. Okay, so that was the 3 pieces of leatherleaf. And then next I'm going to go for my daisies. You can see how they have longer stems as well as some short stems. On these longer stems, you can actually take and cut them apart and use them individually. And that's just going to give you more flowers to use versus trying to stick the whole stem in there. And then I'm just going to take and put my daisies all the way around. Make sure to put some on the sides kind of coming out so that way everything doesn't just come out of the top. And whenever you're looking at it from all angles, you'll be able to see everything. Move that out of the way so I can kind of just cut these over here. Again, this is just something fun that we want to offer for you to be able to do with your children. We'll have different packages available. This is just going to kind of be like the basic one. We have limited quantities of these containers, and so as long as we have them, this is what we'll offer. And then once we sell out of this one, we'll offer a new package. And we'll also have some other packages as well that are going to be more flowers and more of the novelty type flowers. And then we've also ordered in some fun succulents to be able to do succulent arrangements, and those should be here next week. So I am going to leave kind of some of the daisies all together and just push it kind of in so that way it does have the cluster. Also with your foam, make sure that you are pushing your flowers in about at least a ½ inch to an inch, so that way they are fully in the foam and they're not going to just fall out. And that's also going to help make sure that they're able to hydrate more. The further down you can get them, the better, because your water is going to evaporate from the top and you're going to have more water at the bottom than at the top. Next is the Ostromeria that we're going to use, and these have kind of short stems, but some of it does come with longer stems on this part as well, and so then you can separate it. And I'll go ahead and show you, like, you can cut them individually like that and be able to use them individual pieces. And that's the great thing about the foam, is you can still put them in there even if they are short. And if you'll push it towards the base of the stem versus at the top of the flowers, you're going to be less likely to crush a delicate stem. Okay, so on these other two pieces, I'm going to go ahead and leave them whole, just so that way they take up a little bit more space. And so far, I've only used 2 stems of the daisies, and so if you only want to use the 2 stems, you could always make another arrangement or just put them in a vase by themselves, and they typically last by themselves for a while in just plain water. Next, let's go ahead and put some of the Monte Cassino in, just to give it that purple color. And again, these have good long branches, and so you'll be able to cut it apart and use individual pieces instead of having to use the whole stem. And just remember that this is going to be your arrangement, yours and your kids' arrangement, so just have fun with it. Don't worry about making it look exactly like somebody else's. Let it be your own. That's the great thing about flower arrangements, is you get to create your own expression, and each one's going to be individual. Okay, so that's the one stem of the Monte Cassino. So as you can see, it does fill up a lot of space. I'm going to go ahead and do a second stem. And again, I'm going to cut them apart and just kind of use them. Just to kind of fill up a little bit more and add that color into it. And again, I'm pushing them in from the base versus at the flower to try to help from breaking the stems and crushing it, because as you put more in there, it gets a little bit more difficult for things to go in that foam. Okay, so that's the 2 stems of the Monte Cassino, and I'm going to save the third one and probably not use it in this arrangement. Next, I'm going to do the roses, and you can put those in wherever you would like to, just to kind of complete your arrangement and give it the larger focal point. I'm going to go ahead and pull off the shipping petals and then just kind of put them in. With doing the groups of 3s, I like to try to put it in more of like a triangle shape, and so that way there's visible from all around again. This one I might do just a little bit taller back here so that way it fits in perfectly right there. And then there you have it. Just kind of a fun spring arrangement just to brighten spaces while we're being supposed to be quarantined, or not necessarily quarantined, but social distancing. So at least you'll have something pretty to look at and something fun to be able to do with your children.